Hello and welcome to the Blue Pencil Session. This is where we take a look at your pages and we give you our thoughts. I'm Eileen. I'm here today with my colleagues, Donna and Crystal, and we are taking a look at another piece of Denise's science fiction story. So what we're going to take a look at, this piece takes place in the middle, and we've gotten just a little bit of an explanation before it, where the main character, Zara, is sharing some information with another character, Kaylee. So I'm going to start over with Donna because, again, I have a little bit of a sneak peek, so I know a little bit behind the scenes because I've seen a little bit more of this story. But Donna, you had a point of confusion, which I think is useful to sort of talk about.
Yeah. So yes, my point of confusion was I was never sure who was speaking, and it really that confusion just grew to the point where I got lost in what looked like could have been really interesting story because of a number of things. So we know that Zara is speaking to Kaylee, who is an alien, but I don't know if this alien has context of planet Earth, which I made the assumption that she did. I made the assumption that Kaylee was gendered as female. And Eileen pointed out what the challenge was. Number one, it is basically aside from one line where Kaylee asks, your mom was living in Yukon with you, no? So I know that Kaylee speaks English, speaks Zara's language, but then it was just a matter of the entire rest was punctuated improperly. So each paragraph I thought was going between Kaylee and Zara speaking, which just threw me like to the wind. And in fact, it's all Zara speaking, and all you have to do is take off the end quote, and then I would have known that. Not to say that that's your best choice. Hop over to Crystal.
And yes, we'll talk. So for people who are doing this, you can take a look. Grammarly or so forth will help you. But if the same person is speaking over multiple paragraphs, when you finish one paragraph, you don't have the quote marks at the end. You start the new paragraph with the quote marks, and that is the key to the reader that it's the same person continuing. So we can get into that in office hours if people have questions. Over to Crystal.
Yes, and there are also sections where there's Zara telling the story of what happened, which includes another character telling the story that Zara listened to back in the past. And so we are like 3 removes away from the actual experience of what's happening at this point. And so what I really wanted, because there is a lot of energy and a lot of interesting stuff going on, and the character who told the story in the past seemed very interesting and engaging and kind of mesmerizing. And so it seemed like a really good opportunity for us to not have quite so many removes in between. And so for us to, either hop back in a flashback directly or whatever. So I think anytime you find yourself having multiple paragraphs in a row with that quotation adjustment, because it's the same speaker, you need to kind of look at your scene for what it's doing. And I'm going to bounce it back to Eileen to talk about some solutions to that once you've identified it might be not your optimal choice.
Thank you for bouncing back to me. So I think there's really good information in this scene, and again, some interesting context. But what we really have here is almost Zara giving a lecture about here's information that the reader needs to know. So I think you have a couple of different options with that. Or some combination thereof. So one is to actually have a flashback scene where we are in the moment when Zara is hearing the story. And so we're in her body, we're feeling it, we're a part of it, and it's happening live, even though it is in fact a flashback. Or your other option is to make Kaylee a much more engaged listener in this. So Kaylee is having responses that Zara might be like, no, like you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, because there's really no conflict between these two characters. It's just Zara relaying information. So if Kaylee is trying to take something from that, or misunderstanding something with that, or making a leap that Zara doesn't want her to make, or making Zara think about, oh my God, like I hadn't thought about that. That wasn't the right decision. The scene would have a little bit more of a dynamic feel. And I think that's what's missing here, is the feeling of this being an exciting thing versus something that's being told to us. And let's be honest, none of us like to be told stuff. But great information and really interesting stuff. In fact, this is where some information comes up about a birth mom, which I think is a really interesting character development. And so you're kind of weaving in those details. So that I think works particularly well.
And the other piece that struck me, sorry, just is, you know, the referencing to when the dead wake up and the thirst, like I really, really like that and was compelled to know more and engage by it. I was just confused as to who was saying it and who was experiencing it.
And I think it's good advice in general when you have either two characters having a back and forth discussion or potentially more characters. It's also particularly important if you have a group discussion happening, is make sure you have touched base recently with who has spoken. So you might finish a line of dialogue and have the person say, you know, Zara rolled her shoulders. She couldn't believe how much tension was in them, or something where it just helps the reader ground that, oh, that's Zara who's telling us this thing. And two, gives us some sort of sensory detail or something that she's looking at. She's fidgeting with something. So we get a reminder that we're seeing this scene happen. And I cut off Crystal.
I was actually going to lead into the same kind of thing, which was just visually, we needed some clues about what we were watching in the real-time scene that was happening. Like, where are their bodies? Are they walking while they talk? Are they floating in space? Like, what is it that's happening? And you're missing an opportunity without that to get at some conflict in the scene itself. So is she truthfully recounting everything that's happening, or is she shifting uncomfortably or shying her eyes away because she's glossed over something or left something out? Like, you have an opportunity to give us clues as the listener to whether or not she's recounting things or over how awful it really was. And you can only tell by her clenched hands and the fact that she's, you know, gone a little flushed, that it's really stirring up a lot of sort of emotional stuff for her, that you have an opportunity there to kind of make the bodies work for you while the mouths are doing something else.
And that's also an opportunity to do a little bit of world building. So Kaylee is an alien. So as they're having this conversation, like, does Kaylee have a humanoid face? Does it show emotions in the same way? Like, is it something that these kind of aliens, they have, you know, they have antennae that twitch if they think they're hearing a lie, or, you know, like, what's going on? That's just an opportunity for us to see these characters and to see how that interaction is going. So, and again, you can imagine just making this much more simple. If you have a character who's from Canada and they are meeting a character who speaks English but is from Thailand, is there some misunderstandings? Are there cultural differences about making eye contact or not making eye contact, touching someone versus not touching someone? How that might interact gives us a chance to sort of see those different cultures. So I say press on, Denise. And anyone else, if you'd have some pages you'd like us to look at and give you some thoughts, we'd be happy to do that. So please submit those to the Blue Pencil session. And until then, we'll see you around the Academy, everyone. Bye-bye.